Good afternoon, everyone. So the topic of today's panel is lessons in aging. So kind of sounds something that we all know, and it is true. But the interesting thing is that human beings really don't come with a user manual, do they? And we don't have a guidebook. So and once I came to know that I would be part of this panel, and it so happens that universe does kind of send towards you everything, every material you read, you experience. You know, there is a message about what you are about to do in the panel. So I was watching this fabulous docu-series by David Attenborough called Our Planet, and I highly recommend everybody watch. So all kinds of animal species have this mind-boggling annual ritual, and which unfailingly they have carried out for centuries. You know, they migrate, they travel, grazing, breeding. But human beings, we keep changing. We don't have something that is age old or centuries old. We have evolved more than the biological by what we have created with our shared wisdom, collective knowledge. You know, every generation builds upon what has been previously achieved. But with this advancement also comes a challenge that our immediate environment keeps changing and the society needs to adapt along with it. And today the urban environment that we actually live in is basically a result of the Industrial Revolution. And the focus of this urban life is essentially the age group between 6 to 16. You enter school, education, college, job, retirement. And every infrastructure, every resource, every mindset is basically there to support this demography. Anything beyond the scope of 6 and 60 is viewed as an interference, an excess baggage, or something like that. But now, in the last few decades, with medical advancement and the technology revolution, we actually live in very different environment, but we still have a lot to catch up on: infrastructure, mindset, attitudes. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity today with this fine audience, who I think we are all people with a great view. We can see the past. Some of us have actually seen the electrification, the laying of cables and wires, and we are also seeing the future unfold, the wireless cloud lives in front of us. And we have these three young women who have set the ball rolling. Nidhi and Reshmi with a wonderful, what I can say is almost like a handbook, like a user manual, like a guide to aging, and Dr. Shilpa, who is absolutely doing something. I mean, the unsung hero among doctors, the geriatric specialist. So let me start at the very beginning and ask Nidhi and Reshmi to tell us a little about not just the book, a little before that, the silver talkies. How did they think of something like this at their age? What was behind all this? How did they come upon it?
Thank you so much, and thank you for calling it like a handy guide to aging. Well, maybe it is a guide to many things, but again, we are not guiding you. We are much younger, much too small people to do that. It's actually a guide from people who are living that life and the way they're living it. And thank you to everyone at the Mysuru Lit Fest for having us here. How the book came about is it's a product of the work that Nidhi and I do. We run a social impact organization called Silver Talkies, and which looks at creating a community of elders, which looks at social engagement, and the idea behind our work and everything we do is to make loneliness and isolation a completely non-issue for many urban elders. We probably think today urban elders have many privileges. You know, we are talking of lifespans going up, medical advancement. Many people during the research of the book told us that, you know, financially also, today's older adults are often at a better place than probably their parents were. But everybody is grappling with this one thing, which is loneliness and isolation. And we'll come to that a bit later. But essentially, the work of Silver Talkies is around that. And we also have a digital magazine as part of Silver Talkies. And how the book came about was through the whole work we do. We were approached by an editor and we were asked to, write a book on aging. And that's when we sort of put our, collective, whatever experience was there together, took it beyond, took it across to elders around the country and put together the book. And I think, Nidhi, you can add a bit more to that by talking about what Silver Talkies is.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I think you asked us a question, what was the story before the book, right? So the journey of Silver Talkies actually started very early on, 2014, when Reshmi and we were observing our own parents who had retired, like especially our fathers, and the kind of change that we were observing in their lives. And we as, kind of caring daughters we probably had assumptions about how their retired life should look like, and it was nothing of that sort. So just to give you an insight into that, for example, when my father retired, I assumed his retirement would be all about taking up his long lost hobbies and passions which he could not pursue because of his career or taking care of the family. My father was an engineer with Delhi Vidyut Board, so he used to work in shifts. He never had time for himself. So my retirement gift to him was a supply of art supplies basically, so a lot of like colors and watercolors and different kinds of things. Assuming that this would be his time to go back to sketching and drawing that he was very passionate about and very good at as well. So what I found was that he did use those art supplies for a bit, about 3-4 months, and then he went back to just his regular routine of watching TV, just going out for a walk, doing errands, chores. So there was nothing fascinating or interesting which actually happened post-retirement, which I had assumed would happen, right? In Reshmi's case, when her father retired, who was in a transferable job and had lived in many cities, was very outgoing, everything, she discovered that he had suddenly become socially isolated. He would not venture out of the house. He was just sitting at home and she was getting extremely worried and she had to visit a geriatric doctor to get an advice and insight into what was really going on here. On the other hand, her mother, who was now an empty nester because both the children were away from the house, was discovering a new passion in her artwork. So her mother, this dupatta that you see me wearing today is actually painted by her mother. She paints these beautiful dupattas and saris, and she was finding that she could actually become an entrepreneur in her own right. So she was painting and she started selling them over Facebook. So you see the disparity that was happening in the same household, right? So these were the changes that we were observing, and when we wanted to kind of support our own parents through some organization which could probably add some bits of excitement, some bits of engagement for them, we actually did not find a single organization out there which was doing that. So there was a lot of work which was happening around younger adults, children, which is even the case even till date, but nothing which was happening at all for older adults. And that's how the idea of Silver Talkies came to us, that why don't we create an exclusive platform for the 55 plus, where the intention is to help them find a community or a group of like-minded peer group, and also have opportunities of engagement, doing things which they probably would not have done. So our members, people who are members of our Silver Talkies Club, they do things like theatre, they do things like dancing, they do creative writing, they have gotten into writing poems, they have started blogging. So it's what we discovered was that we tend to stereotype our elders in a box. We assume that old age is supposed to be a certain way, while if you ask an elder what they want to do, they will tell you hazard different things. from travel to learning new things, getting technologically advanced. So that's what we try and kind of cater to, give to them via silver talkies, so that they age well, they have enough to keep them occupied and enough to keep them living life to the fullest. Sorry, that was.
Before that, I would like to just say that Mysuru, it often bothers me when I read we are a tier 2 town or grade B city or something like that. And maybe we don't have some brand outlets or whatever, but when it comes to things that matter, be it culture, art, civic awareness regarding environment, cleanliness, everything that matters, we are way ahead of everybody. And Dr. Shilpa here is an evidence of that, because JSS Hospital in Mysuru has a fully working geriatric wing with 4 capable doctors and the entire support. And they cater not just to patients in the hospital, they cater to aging and people with less mobility. They visit them home, and not just as patients, but engage with them. So first of all, I would like to really thank you and congratulate you for opting a specialization which is so needed, but is not as glamorous and people don't opt for it. And I would like to ask a very cliched question. How did you come upon it?
Thank you so much. That was a very nice way of putting it forward. Thank you once again. Well, I know most of my friends also ask me, why did you take this boring subject? Well, how can you even tolerate old people speaking to you for so long? They keep going on and on and on and on. They don't stop. A few of my professors' parents are like my patients. I would say they're my friends. So, why I chose is, initially I opted to become a doctor because I love to be a doctor because, there is an element of care. And when somebody tells you what you did to me was good, that's kind of something which we all want. We all like to be appreciated, isn't it? So I opted to be a doctor thinking that I would do something good for the humankind. And then when I started my practice as a physician, I did notice that whenever I would give prescription to an elderly, like say above 60 years, we put that age because of just a physiological change. So an elderly, when I prescribe, or rather I ask them anything, why did you come to me? The way they tell their medical issues, there is a lot of learning points in the way or the sequences in which they describe. I don't know how you can say that they're boring. They actually tell you facts and figures which you can in fact relate to the science behind why that has happened. That is how we teach medical students to take the history. The sequential history is given only by a person who is wise, and that is all my above 60 friends. So that is one. And when we treat them, they always come back to you and tell that, oh, I'm so happy you gave me this medicine, and they get back to you. I wouldn't say the younger one won't, but majority of them don't, unless you ask, last time I prescribed you this, did that help you? Oh, then oh yeah, I did visit you. But that doesn't happen with somebody who is an elderly person. They always get back to you and they have that gratification, which always made me feel I'm not treating a patient, I'm caring for a person. So that feel of goodness, when I felt my care is complete, when you have the closed loop of communication, where they come back and tell you that my treatment has helped them. That is when I decided that I should go in depth about the subject, and we did have some course. Few of the courses are there in India, like say 5 years back, not much was there. So we had few online distance education program, and then couple of my friends back in UK suggested that if you're so interested to speak to elderly, I think it's time to come back to UK and speak to English elderly than Indian elderly. So you have to have a touch of how English and Indian elderly are. So that is when I opted to do my fellowship in geriatrics, and that's how it all began.
What a wonderful way to put it. And I heard some time ago a doctor speak, and he said that as doctors, we treat many, cure a few, but we must comfort all. And I think Dr. Shilpa has summarily expressed that, what every doctor stands for, or should at least stand for. So now coming back to our authors here, what I loved about the book was that, of course, I mean, she mentioned people like to travel and learn new languages, theatre, and sometimes, just as peer pressure affects teenagers and young people, peer pressure can certainly affect elderly. Knowing myself and my easygoing ways, I might not be so motivated to actively go learn something or do something. I may just like to, muse by myself, and that should be all right too. And what I like about their book is that most of it is first person account. So it's not something that is randomly written on an assumption, but the entire book has people speaking out to you, and you have people who are doing marathons at a very advanced age, doing wildlife photography, and yet there are people who are as happy to have a target of, as long as that my knee doesn't hurt. So it's a book meant for everyone. And what I really, and I'd like to read a little bit from it, is that they, and I think this is for all of us, definitely for all of us who have parents with us. They did a survey asking seniors of what they want, and it was very interesting. So the answers were very simple. So they said anonymously, and this was an anonymous survey: understand me as you wish to be understood. I try my best to understand you and the changing times, but I come with a backlog of conditioning. You may be busy, just find time to talk to me. I like to take my own decisions regarding matters that concern me, so I find excessive advice and interference annoying. Irksome is what they write. Noted. And I don't want to interfere in your personal life, but I'm there if you want to discuss anything. And I think this applies to a broad spectrum of people, but definitely some errors shall be corrected after this. So I just want to ask you that you have covered a gamut of things that make for a functional, engaged living. But given the paucity of time, what would you say is the fundamental requirement for aging, for well-being, for to have a comfortable, happy senior life? What would you say is the vital element?
One vital element certainly is to develop a sense of purpose. Have a sense of purpose, something that makes you get out of bed in the morning and say, hey, I want to do this today. It could be anything. Like she said, it's not just the marathons. It could just be, I want to walk today so that, my knees are fine. I can maintain my health till whatever age I live up to. So one of the things that we discovered, and again, all these have been discoveries as part of our work, part of what people have told us. Sense of purpose seems to be something that keeps you looking forward to every day, looking forward to life. That famous book, Ikigai. Essentially, this is what it talks about. All the so-called blue zones in the world where, which you may have heard of some of them, they're famous for centenarians. And of course, it's to a great extent, it's a product of their genes, their diet, the conditions they live in. But at the same time, all these communities, one thing is very common, people carry that sense of purpose late into their lives. There's something woven into these communities where no one's really sitting, empty, no one's really sitting still, whether they are 80, they're 70, they're 90. Somehow in India, and we are talking of urban India, there is, and although this is breaking now, our book is, again, that it talks about the changing face of age in India. Somehow in India earlier, there was this whole concept that your life kind of comes to a stop once you have retired, or in the case of many women who may have been homemakers, once your children have left, they're married, your responsibilities come to an end, and in a way now you're supposed to sit and relax and put your feet up. That concept is for us, it has been such a revelation as we have started our work and as we discovered in the course of our work. People do not believe in that anymore. In fact, people are likely to turn around and tell you, what is retirement? We are sure all of you would say that to us if we asked you, what is retirement? I mean, I never retired, I just moved on. Someone we interviewed in the book said, I didn't retire. I just finished my work one day and I moved on to other things. So, that to me is one important element. And of course, there are several other elements. Since both of us wrote the book, both of us will tell you about parts of it. Nidhi, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think to me, based on what I have seen with our group members, I think what stands out for me is the importance of taking care of oneself. I think that's a concept which I don't think I have seen my mom grow up with. She is always very busy taking care of others. She's always busy feeding others. She's always busy, by taking care of, now, like, it was us, the children earlier, now it's the grandchildren, right? So I think what I have seen with our community members, there's a very strong sense of wanting to be independent and wanting to live life a certain way. And I think that has led them to, I see a thumbs up coming there, thank you so much. And that has led them to, really putting everything aside and investing in their own well-being. And when I say well-being, it's not just, so this is a very, again, a stereotype thing, and we actually, in many of our forums, we have asked this question to the youngsters, that when you speak to your parents, especially those who live away, or even if you are with your parents at home, what is the general question that you ask to them? Can anybody answer here? When you are calling up your parents who you may not have seen for a while, what's the first question you ask them?
How are you?
How are you in what respect? Health. Which health? Physical health. So that's the thing. We as a society are very attuned to the idea of physical health, completely ignoring the mental health, the emotional and social health. There was a study done by Harvard, which was, recently much spoken about in different media publications. It's been done over 85 years or so, where they have been studying who are the people who are the happiest. And the result of that study was people who have active social connections are the happiest. Right? So, and they also write that people who undergo retirement when they are quitting their jobs, right? When they are coming to their retirement age, it's not the work that they miss. They are not sad about not having work. They are sad about not having those connections which they would now lose out on. Not having those co-workers, not having those opportunities to interact with people. And this actually was a very interesting thing which happened. One of our members, she has been a principal of a very elite school in Bangalore. And for the longest time, she loves her job. She loves interacting with her students. She loves interacting with her teachers. She turned 70 and then she started thinking, maybe now I should, kind of stand down and hand over the opportunity to a younger person in the team. So she took made a very conscious choice of really actually giving up on her principal's job. So she wrote to me after she had, when she really retired, she actually wrote to me exactly this, what the Harvard study said. That I'm very happy with my decision that I gave up, and I'm excited to do things which I want to do now. She wants to learn music, she's doing a course in career counseling so that she can continue doing something. She said, the only thing I will miss is talking to my teachers and students. So I think the social and emotional well-being to me is so critical, and we cannot ignore it any which way. And what we have seen in our community, and what what Hema was alluding to, the whole peer group, having a peer group around you actually keeps you going. It pushes you to stay your best. So we have had incidents where, say I was telling Hema example that, for example, we had run a bhajan class, and that gang of women have become like really thick gang of friends, because they meet each other online over a bhajan every week. So even if somebody is unwell, all the other women will rally around her and ensure that she attends. No, you come and listen. If you can't sing, it's okay. You come and listen, it will help you. Right? So that's the kind of camaraderie and rapport that they have built, that they feel they belong to a group. They feel their social networks have expanded. And I think it's very intuitive, even if you were to imagine their mindset, how much of value that adds to their psyche and actually makes them physically healthier too, right? So to me, that's self-care and social and emotional well-being play a very, very large role in keeping somebody physically and mentally healthy, and of course then aging well.
Thank you, and actually we are short of time, so one would think that we have rehearsed this, but we haven't, because she has really given me the right cue to move on to Dr. Shilpa, talking about physical and health and wellness and well-being. So I just want to quote a little study that was done in St. Paul, Minnesota. I found this in an article written by Atul Gawande. I urge you to read. He writes beautifully about aging and medicine. So about 568 over 70-year-old seniors who were living independently, out of them 50% were assigned to general physicians and 50% were assigned to the care of geriatricians. Okay, among the whole thing, a little bit of morbid data, that 10% overall anyway passed away, but the ones who were assigned to a geriatrician, and here comes our Dr. Shilpa, mind you, that 1/3 of them were less likely to have any disability related to aging and were less likely to be depressed. And that is where it is so important to have a geriatrician attending to a person beyond a certain age who is a little more than a physician. And I would like Dr. Shilpa to share her experiences, not just with, the book is essentially about urban, but Dr. Shilpa in her course of work meets rural women from other parts in and around Mysuru. So some experiences about those, and what kind of people does she meet, and what are the concerns, and what do you want from all of us to make lives better?
Thank you. Yeah, that was an apt question. Probably I'll just put it short. As we all know, when we go to a doctor, we are all checked for our physical health. And with all due respect, because I myself have been a physician primarily, when we treat as a physician, because if I start doing a cardiologist job, I may not be able to look at a person in whole. So they have their own primary priorities which needs to be addressed. With all that, why are we so different? One, we look into few aspects. One, the medical background, medical examination, and with their significant past, present medical history. The important aspect which we look into is something called as a biological age, which there is no blood test to prove that. We all have our age as a chronological age. Say we are 30 years since you're born. So, but the biological age is something very different, wherein that is why nowadays we see youngsters succumbing to their big heart attacks, and we have seen a lot of diseases which are affecting the youngsters, but whereas we have elderly who are above 80 and 90 who are hale and healthy. So what is that? Is that age? No, that's why this book, Rethink Aging. So it's not only the number which matters, there is something which happens within the cell which actually tells you how good are you functioning, how is your mental ability, how is your ability to understand, how is your memory. So the other sector which the geriatrician has to give importance is to your social aspect, psychological assessment, and also there is an assessment of spirituality assessment. Sounds very, very vague, But spirituality, don't think we have to get into spirituality when you're 60 plus or when something bad happens to you. No, please go for spirituality at your younger age, because you have to know what spirituality is, not because you have to join an ashram in your old age. No, because the more you are clear with your mind and your thought processing, your decision capacity is very, very good. Once your decision making is good, the results are definitely very good. So that is one assessment which a geriatrician would do. And the small part is ACP, which is an advanced care planning. So here we do discuss with the family as a whole about how much have they decided about, how far are they going to work on about their health as well. When it comes to property, yes, we all do your property things would be done legally, but when it comes to decision making about your health, say you have unfortunately if something major illness happens, who is the decision maker at your house? So that has to be discussed when we are all hale and healthy. So the best person is your physician or is your geriatrician. So now we have come up with this branch because we are supposed to address this. That is how we are going to add on to the well-being of an elderly and the family, as well as we will decrease the national health burden by doing this. Of course, this is very easy in urban population because we have an educated crowd here. Though I have been very quick in putting it across, I'm sure you have all got the message. But the challenge is with the rural population. But our hospital, we do have a lot of, we do have a set of population coming from the rural background, but we do discuss with them, and I think they are taking it in a better way. Of course, lot of work to be done in this field, and now, geriatric is an upcoming field, and we all have to work for it as a team, not only as a geriatrician. It starts with the children at home, grandchildren, and children. Thank you.
So that was, you said it quickly, but it was so clear and precise. Couldn't have, a textbook couldn't have put it better. And with this, we are really running short of time. So what I just want to conclude this panel with is that COVID times have actually exposed a lot of gaps that we have in our system, in our society, but I think it has also given us an opportunity to think about what to fix, what to create. And I think no better crowd than this. We are people who are educated, like she said, we have privileges, we have access to start this conversation that the three young ladies here have started us upon, and take it to some kind of conclusion, have better care and support systems, work at policy levels, bring about change, because I'm sure we can do that. Thank you so much, Mysuru Express, for giving us this opportunity, and thank you.
That was a very insightful discussion. Thank you very much. A few things.